And so there's two specific examples that you use in your piece about how this can be misleading. Can you just go over those real quick? I think one was significantly worse than the other. The Violence Project,
Oh my gosh.
Has
they
have a website about concealed carry killers, right?
Yeah. So the Violence Policy
that.
Center has a website, like Stephen says, called the Concealed Carry Killers. And that one measures all, I guess, gun-related death caused by supposedly these concealed carry killers. I'm doing scare quotes there for the people listening on the podcast. And they count, I think it was approximately 2,400 from 2007 to about a year ago. 2022 is what their date range is. The problem is, and the webs, if you go into their background page, they have a nice little chart which shows you what this is made up of. And over 1,200 of these 2,400 are suicides. And they're not even murder suicides because they count murder suicide separately. So these are just 1,200 people who just killed themselves, hurt nobody else. And Violence Policy Center calls them killers because they had a carry permit. And even, I mean, there's other issues with that website. For one, they list about 500 convicted murderers, but it doesn't say if those murderers killed somebody out in public or at home, because if they killed somebody at home, that the carry permit isn't even relevant to the discussion, really.
Sure, yeah. but I think that's sort of the most egregious, perhaps, example of this problem you're talking about,
yeah.
where committing suicide is not only counted as gun violence, but they're labeling people who do that as killers.
Yeah, it's shameful. I I would hope even many others on the gun control side would agree that that's not acceptable and they wouldn't do that. I think the Violence Policy Center should probably change that, or at least change the name of its website. I mean, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, I think that's probably the worst example that you were able to put into this piece, but it's not the only one, right? So there's a more mainstream sort of use of this gun death rate statistic. Talk about that. Everytown, I believe.
Everytown is the one. Yeah. So Everytown ranks every state by their Everytown grade. And they score them based on how much gun control they pass. And then they also tell you their gun death rate. Now, the reason they do this is because if you combine suicides and homicides together into just a gun death rate number, there does appear to be some correlation, at least visually, between, states that have a lot of gun control and states that have low gun death rates. The problem for them, and I think they realize this, and that's why they do this, is that doesn't work if you just count homicides. If you count homicides, there's no apparent correlation between these scores, whether it be Giffords or Everytown, and their gun-related homicide rate, or even overall homicide rate. There's no correlation. So they're kind of torturing the data here and saying gun death rate to include suicide, so they can show you that, look at all these states that have all this gun control and they have a low gun death rate. Well, that's misleading, I think.
And as you mentioned at the start of the show here, this statistic, this gun death rate statistic, and this idea that it correlates with gun laws is used to push primarily policies that have no effect on suicide. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so if they're going to use suicides, gun-related suicides, as a platform to push gun laws, and not only use them, but it's more than half of their count, then you would think that, okay, fine, but a lot of these policies should be related to stopping suicide. Otherwise, you're just using this number to push unrelated, when I say unrelated, dealing with homicide, gun control laws. So I went through Everytown's criteria that they use to grade states, and I think I found just 3, maybe 4, I think it was 3 gun laws that, even if they worked, if we gave them the benefit of the doubt and just assumed that these laws do what they say and accomplish their purpose, only 3 out of about 40 had anything to do with suicide. I think those were red flag laws. Conceivably, I guess you could stop someone from committing suicide by having their guns taken. There were safe storage laws, and I believe there was one more. My memory's failing me right now, but there was one more there that, if it had mental health
involuntarily commitment.
Yes. So those 3 could conceivably, if they worked, stop suicide. But it's such a small percent for a problem that, gun-related suicides over half of the gun deaths they report, but only a small fraction of their proposed solutions. Like I said earlier, their marquee items are like assault weapons bans, magazine restrictions, licensing. That's not going to stop somebody who's suicidal. Often these people don't have any kind of criminal record. The background check won't stop them. And again, you don't need a 30-round magazine to commit suicide.